In our weekly exploration of some of the most iconic figures in golfing history, our pick for this video is the legendary Bobby Jones. It's been almost a century since he won the Amateur and Open Golf Championships in the US and UK, respectively. Robert Tyre Jones Jr., or Bobby Jones as he was mostly regarded, was easily one of the sport's most decorated players. Many years later, his feats remain immortalized in the history books and the different mediums through which he shared his love and passion for golf. What makes his achievements even more mind-blowing is the fact that he had a relatively short career. He retired from competitive golf at only 28 years of age. In his words, 14 years of intense tournament play in this country and abroad had given me about all I wanted in the way of hard work in the game. If Bob Ross played golf and taught others to play, he'd be Bobby Jones. So come on then, let's explore the life and times of arguably the best player ever to step foot on a course. Background: born on March 17, 1902, in Atlanta, Georgia, Jones was sickly as a child. In fact, it was his frailness that led him to golf in the first place. Silly as it sounds, the medical prescription to improve his health was, well, golf. His father, Colonel Robert Permitus Jones, a lawyer, was one of young Jones's biggest supporters at the start. He encouraged his son to pursue the sport for the betterment of his health. What started out as a treatment soon became a hobby, and then a passion for Jones, who found the sport easy. The more he played, the more he developed a natural knack for the game until he became a child prodigy. He was only 6 when he won his first golf tournament at the East Lake Golf Club. Fast forward to 1916, and Jones had upped the ante by winning his first major, the inaugural Georgia Amateur Championship at the Capital City Club in Brookhaven. He was only 14 at the time, but his feats of genius were enough to launch him into the public consciousness. This win soon drew the attention of the United States Golf Association, which gave Jones his first invitation to participate in the U.S. Amateur at Marion, just outside of Philadelphia. Naturally, Jones excelled through the tournament and reached the quarterfinals on his first try. His career grew in leaps and bounds from that moment onward. Besides golf, Jones was something of a polymath. He had a curious mind and was smart enough to pursue multiple interests and talents. Before cementing his legacy in golf with the impregnable quadrilateral, as coined by New York sports reporter George Trevor, Jones went to college and graduated with a bachelor's in engineering from Georgia Tech. But that wasn't enough for the boy wonder because he soon enrolled in Harvard to study English literature. Then, he applied for law school at Emory University and aced the Georgia bar exam a year and a half into his studies. What a man! Dr. Bob Jones IV, Jones's grandson, describes his forebear's intellectual and academic prowess as follows. That just shows a tremendous breadth of intellectual curiosity. In many ways, he was the prototype of the Renaissance man. He loved fine arts, but also quite a bit of the popular music of his time. He liked to sit down and read the classics, but he also loved Punch and Life magazines. He was an avid photographer and loved to fish. Behind his many skills and passions, Jones was both a merry and self-deprecating fellow, which lent authenticity to his character. He rolled with life's blows, like when he was diagnosed with syringomyelia in 1948, and basked in the highlights, like being one of the earliest celebrities during the golden age of sports. Contributions to golf. It's been over 50 years since Bobby Jones's passing, but his contributions to golf and indeed the world at large remain evident to date. Besides making his mark on the sport with 13 major championships, including a famous quadruple, he was and remains one of the most beloved athletes in American history. In fact, upon his death in 1971, 2 ticker tape parades were made in his honor up Broadway in New York City. Jones's curator and professor of history at Kennesaw State University, Dr. Catherine M. Lewis, who has extensively worked to bring his impact to light in over 20 years, commented on the kind of man he was, saying, "I'm not sure there is anyone in sport that has the intellectual power, the grace and humility, sportsmanship, and the sheer impact on their sport as Jones." If you didn't know Jones personally or as an athlete, you could never tell if you were reading about his life or browsing a tournament gallery. He wasn't just in the newspaper headlines, he wrote them too. Between 1927 and 1935, Jones wrote a syndicated column twice a week, contributed to several magazines, and authored 4 books in his lifetime. One of the most popular of his volumes was Down the Fairway, in which the Atlanta native collaborated with O.B. Keeler. one of the most decorated sports writers of the time. On estimate, Jones believed he wrote at least 500,000 words on golf before his passing. Recall that I called Jones the Bob Ross of golf. Well, that's not unfounded, since his affable personality and easy-to-understand ingenuity led to the production of 18 instructional movies. Partnering with Warner Brothers, Jones released How I Play Golf in 1931 and followed it up with How to Break 90 2 years later. He also didn't shy from celebrity relationships, teaming up with film stars like Loretta Young, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Joe E. Brown, and W.C. Fields to create entertaining lessons that captured every aspect of the sport that he loved. Like Bob Ross, he courted millions of followers who watched his films and saw him in the theaters. Even decades later today, many of Jones's theatrical works hold up due to the high production values he upheld and his charming charisma. If he hadn't already done enough by proving anyone could play golf, he also partnered with equipment manufacturer Spalding to help design golf clubs. His feel for equipment came in handy in creating the first set of matched steel-shafted clubs, whose logo is still used today in the production of modern golf clubs. Golf records. Despite a short career in golf, Jones was easily one of the best of his generation. Here is a peek at some of the honors he amassed on the course. To date, he remains the only player to have won the Pre-Masters Grand Slam, which is what all golf major championships are called. He won each one in the same year, in 1930, starting with the Amateur Championship on May 31, 1930. He bagged the Amateur at the Old Course at St Andrews, Scotland. Next was the Open Championship nearly a month later, on June 20, 1930, at the Royal Liverpool Golf Club in Hoylake, England. Then, he returned to the U.S. to compete in the U.S. Open at the Interlachen Country Club in Minnesota. On July 12, 1930, he was crowned the champion, taking his tally to 3 championships in 3 months. To cap off the Grand Slam, Jones participated in the U.S. Amateur at the Marion Golf Club in Pennsylvania. On September 27, 1930, he had claimed his 4th championship. But the most remarkable part of this story was that Jones believed he could win all 4 championships and bet on himself. At the time, British bookies gave him a 51 odds of pulling it off before the first tournament began. By the end, he walked away with $60,000, or around $1,122,150.90 in today's economy. Mental. 7 years before completing this impossible record, 1923, Jones clinched his first U.S. Open victory. That win at the Inwood Country Club in New York was the Atlanta native's first of 13 major championships in 21 attempts. In 1926, he became the first golfer to win the double, which was the British and U.S. Open championships in the same year. By his defining year, 1930, he became the second and last golfer to win the U.S. Open and U.S. Amateur in the same year. The first to do it was Chick Evans in 1916. His victories in the British Amateur and British Open championships in the same year also made him the second golfer in history to achieve the feat. Before him was John Ball. Creating Augusta, the birth of the Masters. Jones's Grand Slam victory was the perfect goodbye in his eyes, and he announced his retirement from competitive golf soon afterward. Even before pulling off the unbelievable, he had become one of the most famous and recognizable athletes globally. Although the public adulation and endless media attention were well-deserved, it cost Jones the privacy he wanted in golf circles. This soon got him thinking about a private golf club, where he could go to enjoy a casual game and some peace and quiet with friends and family. His love for Atlanta led him to search for the perfect property to develop his private golf club. However, for years, he couldn't seem to find a good place. Then came New York City investment dealer Clifford Roberts, a friend of Jones. It was Roberts who found the perfect property for Jones's private golf club. Although it was in Augusta, Georgia, not his beloved Atlanta, Jones's didn't mind. In 1930, he visited Fruitlands, an indigo plantation and nursery in Augusta, for the first time, and he liked what he saw. A year later, he paid $70,000 for the property and got started on his designs for a golf course. This investment in privacy is what we now know as the Augusta National Course. Jones called on Alistair Mackenzie to help design the course, and 2 short years later, early 1933, the new club had been completed and was open for hosting golf tournaments. Jones hoped that Augusta would host the U.S. Open, but the conditions of the course made it unsuitable in the summer when the tournament was held. But if he could not get the US Open, perhaps Jones could start a tournament of his own. And that he did thanks to the idea of Grantland Rice, then editor of American Golfer. Rice suggested that Augusta hosted a tournament for sports writers returning from spring training in Florida. Jones agreed, and the first tournament kicked off with a resounding success in March 1934. This new tournament, originally called the Augusta National Invitational, appealed to more than just sports writers. In fact, from its inaugural campaign, some of its attendees were top golfers. Jones briefly came out of retirement to play again, but only in exhibition events. His presence alone was sure to attract the press in their drives, further improving the new tournament's fame and credibility. By 1939, the tournament became what we now know as the Masters, arguably the best-known golf tournament to date and a crucial part of the modern Grand Slam. From a Grand Slam champion to a maker of new champions, Bobby Jones, what a man! If you like videos like these that delve into important figures in golf history, like this video and subscribe to the channel. You'll be glad you did.